Okay. Good afternoon. Hope you're all doing well. I want to thank you first and foremost for being here today. I know certainly we're all excited for the start of a season and appreciate the coverage and all the stuff that you guys do. So great to have you here, opening day of practice. It all kind of strings along together rather nicely. You know, we end up closing out the season with 3 straight wins and built some momentum that carried over into the offseason and the winter conditioning program, and certainly led to a great spring practice. You know, a new scheme on defense, some tweaks in both special teams and on offense, and that then led to another great summer conditioning program and the addition of 11 freshmen at the mid-year point, as well as the rest of the gang, 16 more that joined us here at the end of June. So they've had a great summer, and certainly they've been eager for this day to come. The day has arrived, and they got after it. Really good first day, really pleased with, probably more than anything, I should say, is the way that the culture continues to get stronger and better. That word is not just a tagline here, that everything we do and the way we do things means something. Everything's important. Living a hungry, a humble, and a driven life and approaching, our opportunity in that way really is important to us. And it shows in the way that we do things on a daily basis, and we want to continue along those lines. But that being said, good first start, very aggressive. We've got some things to clean up, but certainly all the work in the summer shows in the way guys are bending and the way guys are moving, in the physicality of a practice that really, we're in helmets. We're not in pads yet. Got to tone it down a little bit with some of the guys because they want to fight for spots. And the best part about it, the feeling is everything is wide open. And that's the way it's got to be for guys to compete for spots, with the organizational chart that we prepare. I know that drives you guys crazy, right? Organizational chart. But you have to have an organized way of practicing. If not, that would be pretty challenging out there. So with that being said, please open to questions.
How healthy are you guys entering fall camp?
I'm sorry, one more time.
How healthy are you guys entering fall camp?
We're really healthy. I believe the only guys that had limited action today due to a twist of an ankle was Cam McCormick. Help me out if I'm off by a little bit. Just about everybody practiced today, or was limited, like Sam Patasi coming off an ACL during the bowl game. He was full go, but we limited some of the heavier workloads that he would be doing. But aside from that, Hockey Woods, he had a very mild ankle sprain in the summertime, and he was good to go. I think he completed every rep. We originally put him on an 80-90% plan, and he wanted more. He said, "Coach, I'm ready." So he went. So we feel good. We feel good about our health. We feel good about our conditioning.
When seasons get started, a lot of fans are excited about new quarterback or new position battle. As a coach, what were you excited to see transpire on the first practice field? What were the things that you we're looking to see?
Well, I think that because we emphasize discipline so much, it's really become a way of life, and so has the cultural part. So what I'm looking for is the little things. I'm looking for the way we get to meetings. Are we prepared? Are we coming in there, big old smile on our face, a lot of juice, our notebook open, prepared, taking notes, asking questions? I look at how early we get to certain meetings and certain parts of practice, because it shows an eagerness and a readiness. I look at the way we run on and off the field. I look at the way we secure the football. I look at the way we execute the finer details of what needs to be executed. And what we bring it all together in the sense that, look, we live a disciplined way, and we have disciplined standards because it does translate to a disciplined style of play. Doesn't mean you take away from the aggressiveness. Doesn't mean you take away from, what you want to put in terms of explosiveness behind it. But you can't be sloppy when you play this game. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for little things. I'm looking for leadership. We have a great leadership council, and we have about 18 guys that are candidates to be on that leadership council, elected by their peers and by the strength coaches as to the summer workouts and whatnot. Those are important things because now it's year 2. There has to be a transfer of ownership, so to speak, where that locker room really takes it over. And I've been lucky enough for those best teams I ever had a chance to play on. That locker room really took ownership of the team, and so looking for that. Looking for a lot of things, really, right? I could have kept going on and on. What's up, buddy?
Coach, over here. Sorry
there
about that.
There you go.
What are your points of emphasis going into this fall camp as a coaching staff? What do you want out of this team? Emphasis.
Yeah. Well, our principle are trust, belief, and accountability. But for us, always physicality, making explosive plays, playing discipline, making sure that we understand that we have to build depth at a lot of positions, right? To be able to be effective, in this sport, especially as the season goes on, the lines of scrimmage on both sides of the ball have to be stout, have to be explosive, have to be athletic with all the movement stuff that we do. We have to be dynamic enough on the offensive side to run multiple schemes. It just can't be an inside zone team or an outside zone team. So versatility in how we do things, the tweaks, the wrinkles that come with year two, the ability to plug in more talent at certain positions so that we can now just open up both sides of the playbook, the offense, the defense. Looking for our special teams, particularly our kickers, the ball placement. Who does a better job with trajectory? Who puts the ball in the right spot when we need it to be? Who's more accurate from the 45 and in? Who's more accurate from the 45 and out? So the list is pretty long, but in terms of, hopefully that kind of answers your question a little bit. But those are the things. But physicality is never to be compromised, right? Execution is never to be compromised. Culture, discipline. Love seeing the older guys taking the younger guys and bringing them along as well. Camp really determines, what type of, start you have to your season. And we told our guys for this camp, for us, it's going to be challenging, it's going to be difficult, but it's also going to be very productive. And we have to elevate the culture, and we have to establish our identity of how we prepare, how we practice, and of course, in turn, how we play the game.
Mario, you have a very experienced tight end group, especially with Cam back, and I realize there's only been one practice so far, but what are your early impressions of Patrick Herbert, and what would he have to do to get on the field with his brother this year? Yeah,
his brother's lucky that he's a senior. He'd be in the shadow of Patrick, in due time. Patrick's going to be a great football player. And he came in, I believe, at 221 pounds, had been playing basketball. I mess with him all the time. I tell him his basketball team doesn't really miss him, He was just okay. But he's about 241 right now. And this guy, he's got all the tools you want from an inline tight end and an off-the-ball tight end. Okay, he can come off the ball, come out of his hips, snap people back. He could work against stand-up linebackers as well as three-point stand defensive ends. He's great in double teams, and he could stretch the field as a tight end. Real big catch radius, sure-handed, extremely smart, hard worker. I had a chance to have the tight ends and the tackles together today. And, I coach those guys hard, demand a lot of them. And I want to see how he responded. My first chance to really kind of, get in there with him. And he responded great. He really did. And that's his DNA, right? The family DNA. We all know his family. So expecting big things from Patrick. And we really think he's in the mix to play this year. Excuse me.
Coach, usually when a team loses a player like Ugo Amadi to the NFL, that becomes a big hole that needs to be filled. But do you guys feel pretty confident that you have the safeties to get it done with Holland and Pickett and Breeze, et cetera? Is that going to be an easy position to fill?
No, you bring up a great point. It's, not only Ugo, you got, of course, a couple other guys that are pretty good football players. Jalen Jelks, right? Justin Hollins. These are three NFL players that were on our defense last year. And, back to the question with Ugo, Ugo's a very difficult guy to replace. I read, I think you had posted something about him taking a tip ball and running it back, for a touchdown. That's what he does. He did everything. Remember, Ugo went from playing corner, understanding an entire scheme, playing safety, playing nickel, playing as a punt returner, every special teams. Those guys are really hard to replace. But love the way that Nick Pickett and Brady Breeze and Khalif, Steve Steven, all those guys are coming along really well. And you've got some other new guys in the mix as well, and some versatility at those guys playing corner that could jump on in and play some nickel and maybe move a Khalif to corner and do some of those things. But is it a challenge? I think so. Until we have our first scrimmage and play with live ball and live tackling or whatnot, I'd hold judgment on how close we are to replacing him. But we do feel we have enough talent to replace him and honorably replace him, I should say, because we do think he is a great football player.
Coach mentioned opening up the playbook a little bit on both sides of the ball, and I was wondering if you could expand upon that a little bit. How much difference will we see in the offense this year, and then also with Coach Abalos coming in, how much change will we see offensively?
Well, I think you always do the things that you did well, you want to keep them and expand them, and then things that you feel you could do now better or had held before, you expand on those as well. I don't think, out of respect for you and for the team, obviously we don't ever talk pure schematics in what we do here, but the bottom line is, on both sides of the ball, explosive plays are what are running college football. You have to stop teams from having explosive plays, and you have to create explosive plays. In fact, if you look at drive charts over the last, 3 years, whenever a team had an explosive play, a run of over 15 yards, a pass of over 20 yards, they scored about 85%, 90% of the time. And that's a huge number, okay? And that's when you start having to go 3 and 4 yards a shot, that's different. And we had some really good moments and some ones we could improve upon on both sides of the ball. And that's part of an off-season study where we took a really big, deep dive into what we're doing as well as what we think we could continue getting better at and how to expand it. We met with some people, but we feel confident about the tweaks, the wrinkles, and even more so the staples that are really good for us on enhancing those as well.
Mario, what are your thoughts on the 9 a.m. kickoffs that have been proposed and talked about? Do you think it could help the conference's national profile?
Was it 9 or 7? Well, I mean, it's a challenge. I think, it's interesting. I don't judge until it's done. You might say, hey, I'll play him at home, make somebody come here, and we'll play at 9 a.m. It's just very new. It's uncharted waters. So, probably a little bit difficult. But I'm no one to judge, and I'll hold judgment on that. But that is a 5 a.m. pregame meal now. I'm going to invite all of you for that one. I'm going to make sure you're all there, and then you're going to write about how you feel about the 9 a.m. So.
Coach, obviously this group of freshmen coming in highly touted, a lot of guys that are thought of as potential instant impact players. Are there any that caught your eye just physically, how they came into camp today as guys that if they adopt the scheme and play well could be contending for some real snaps this year?
That's why I brought this sheet, because we have, the class is 27, and they're really talented. They are. And a lot of them are positions that are completely open. And you guys have talked about, we've talked about Mikkel, we've talked about Micah. Today Sean Dollar's got a touch, and man, he hit that seam and, he was gone. So he showed today, all the reasons why we recruited a guy like that. But you go down the line, you saw the range of Triquez and how long and athletic he is. We saw DJ James and Jamal Hill, how explosive they are and how well they could cover. These are both track guys that were just extremely successful football players in their respective states and on their respective teams at high levels. A guy that really stood out as well. Obviously, Kayvon continues to stand out and really show that he has all the tools to be a really impactful player for us this year. I thought Trevin did a really good job today. I thought a guy that hardly gets mentioned, Isaac Townsend, did a really, really good job today as well. Long, athletic, lean, all those big bodies. Keon did a really good job. Brandon, Christian, all those guys were slugging it out in there with the big boys, and we got to slow them down. We're not in pads yet, but I think, this list goes on for a little bit. Mace Funa is a dynamic football player. And when we put on these pads, so you guys know, the way we structure practice, the threes, the young guys, they get the exact amount of reps as the ones. There is no shortage of reps. We two-spot everything. It's the best way to film everything, to evaluate and assess, and not to mention develop, right? 29 days. They didn't always used to be like that. It used to be the 40 units. That's a whole different animal. And really, you got to start preparing for your opponent 10 days out, right? So you're looking at 19 days to figure out your football team. You can't pound it out all 19 days either. So you've got to be really good about the way you assess and evaluate this thing now. And you've got to set up situations and drill work, right, that are going to give these guys a chance to showcase what they can do. We got to see if we can block, tackle, throw, and catch, the basic fundamentals of football. And then the rest, we got to scheme it up. That part's on us,
Yeah, Coach. Looked like Kayvon and DJ kind of swapped spots in terms of Kayvon was playing one spot in the spring and they looked like they switched. What kind of is the balance of figuring out the defensive end and that stud spot? And is that something that maybe progresses throughout camp in terms of finding the right fit?
They're both really explosive players. And we would like to build versatility since that body type is unique, right? Anywhere from 6'3" to 6'7", could go from 228 pounds all the way to 275 pounds. And we have a couple of those body types now, and they were both really effective in the spring. So we want to create snap value. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but not only competing with, Kayvon just playing the stud and competing with the studs, but we like the studs and the ends to be able to flop with each other and compete against each other. Who are the best three before who are the best two studs and who are the best two defensive ends? And I think then you add the special teams part as well. And now you're really finding out, okay, now you're competing against the studs, the defensive ends, and the second, third team linebacker for that spot on the punt team. So that's what we're trying to do with that right there. And you'll see them go back and forth throughout camp.
Mario, where do you see Brian Addison fitting into this, large group of receivers competing for the spots right now?
Yeah, he had a really good day today, and I think he picked up right where he left off when he got nicked up in the springtime. He had a strong spring early on, was making a lot of big plays, presented some mismatch, issues, and he's explosive, he's fast, he's a great guy. I mean, the guys love him. They surely want to see him have success. We all know his story and how he got here. So he's in the mix, and he's in the mix heavy, and I think he adds a lot of size and a lot of catch radius, a lot of range to the passing game, as does Jawan. Those are two different body types of what we've had in the past couple of years.
The team was picked to win the North. The first time that's happened since 2015, and a lot of these guys haven't been a part of a program that's been picked to win the league. How do you manage that topic? Do you talk about it once and just push it away, or do you guys embrace that and publicly talk about it on a regular basis, or not even address it?
Yeah, you address it, because the worst thing in the world is just to shut down awareness, right? We do it with our own kids. Got to make them aware of what the outside world is, what's kind of being said about you or the country or your school, whatever it may be. And so we make it just very real and very genuine. It's an honor because, the media, you guys study. You guys study teams, you guys study personnel, you study trajectories, and those things, we respect it. We just, like anything else, we never make a prediction part of the process. And we all know, I think we've all learned, the good way and the hard way, that when we're really dialed in and focused on what we have to do, we can be a pretty good football team. When we don't, we could go sideways. So the last part of that lesson was learned in year one, and going into year two, I think the additional members of the leadership council, just the bludgeoning of culture that, transpires here on a daily basis, and the creating this just genuine, real deal relationship of, no punches pulled, no holds barred, no manipulation of the facts. I think we're able to talk straight up and never have any issue or confusion or anything cloudy on what the reality is. We have miles to go to where we want to get to, and we got a lot of work to do to get there.
How exciting is it to open with such a big game, national TV against Auburn?
Well, in about, about 10 days out, the focus will turn completely to Auburn. I mean, we all know it's an incredible opportunity anytime you have a chance to play one of the best teams in the country on a big stage. But we also know that you can't skip step 1, 2, and 3, which is camp, which is Oregon, looking at Oregon in the mirror, looking at our faults, things we have to get better at, and making sure that we improve upon those things. And then after that, then we'll get dialed in on our first opponent, all the respect in the world for them, and certainly we recognize the great opportunity that we have.
You mentioned that you had nearly a dozen kids who enrolled early and took part in spring ball. How much of that do you think is a result of the early signing period, the New Orleans signing period, or do you think that that was just part of a continuing trend that was happening anyway in college?
That was a trend that was happening. That was a trend that was already pretty strong. I think what you're seeing, the whole calendar's been pushed up. I mean, really, it's like the next step is just sign your next 3 classes in January or February, right? It's going fast, but no, I think it's a great deal now, and we have the benefit of the quarter system. So some guys get here in January, and then some guys get here in April. So if they miss that window, they could still get here, go through spring practice, and still have the post-spring strength conditioning program underneath their belt, and 12, 13 credits. So it's a tremendous benefit. It really is.
Yeah, Coach, question about the running game. At 179 yards per game, that was the lowest total since 2005. Is that a concern? Is there an ideal number? And if so, what's going to be the difference this year?
Well, we don't run the quarterback, so numbers in that part might be a little bit different. We want to lead the conference in rushing. We would. That's always a goal, and that's not going to change. And you know what? We've improved the physicality and things we did up front, and we had a couple really bad games running the football that really skewed some numbers, and we can't have that if we want to be a successful football team. So in terms of your question, are we concerned about the running game? No, we feel confident that we're going to continue to improve and get better. What is our goal for the running game? Our goal is to have the best running game in the conference year after year, wherever that lies, But certainly it's something that's at the forefront of everything we do, running the football and stopping the run.
I realize special teams is usually a fall camp kind of focus, but we really didn't talk about it much in spring. You have an open competition at kicker. You have to identify new returners. The punt game was not a particular strength. How do you envision things shaking out? What's the process? Will you go live in the return game during camp to identify those returners?
That's a great question. We really struggled in the kicking game, and a lot of it was due to actually kicking and punting the football. That's no secret. The trajectory of the punts were low, and they weren't very far. And in the kicking game, our range was very limited, and we had some injuries. Today, what we did is, from a field goal standpoint, we almost rapid fire on the right hash, one group, left hash, another group, try to get 10 kicks off in about 2 minutes and chart them on a daily basis with live rushes. We got to find out who is our best field goal kicker. Then we go, of course, to our kickoff team, our coverage teams, and of course, we have those guys rep in order to see who our best guy is, who's got the best distance, who's got the best hang time, and who's got the best ball placement. Ball placement on kickoff is just as important as the distance and the height. It really affects your coverage teams. And on the punt team, the same thing. They're all wide open. They really are, and we're repping it like a wide open battle position. And those guys know it. They're fully aware of it. They've attacked it. They did a good job competing today. It was good to see Adam Stack back today. He looked like the guy that we saw a couple of years ago before he got a little bit tweaked up. He looked really, really good. But, Emerson and certainly Cam Lewis, all those guys are competing hard, and they all got an opportunity.
Hey, Coach, two-part question. What, in your mind, is the next step for Justin and his progression as a quarterback? I guess both on and off the field. Mm-hmm. And then I think earlier you mentioned you kind of consulted with some people outside the program in the offseason about the offense, if I understood you right. Or you talked to some people. Did you talk to people outside the program? Were you consulting with people, and who were those folks?
Oh, I can't give you all that stuff now.
That's top level.
Those are great questions, but I can't give you all of it.
I had to try.
No, every offseason we always travel and we bring people in. We like to keep that in-house as much as possible, because if not, you're actually telling people exactly what you're looking at, right? But that something doesn't change. You're in and you're out, We feel we have some really good things, and we feel like there's just some other things we could be really good at. So we visit the teams that do those things well, both at the college level and at the pro level. And we bring them in as well, in pretty good numbers, because you have that time during the spring, And that's in every phase, offense, defense, special teams. And then, we traveled a little bit too, and that was documented. And that was helpful as well. But, that kind of leads to Justin as well. Justin did a great job at the Manning camp. Just like Throckmorton did a great job over at the O-line Mastermind camp, right? We're always developing and growing. We pride ourselves on that. A guy like that is, his next step is continuing to just take control of the entire offense, right? The great quarterbacks understand A to Z with their eyes closed like the back of their hand, because they understand that the protections really make, a huge difference in what we're throwing and where we're throwing it. If we're throwing the ball down the field and we're in an empty protection, well, that six rusher comes, he's got to handle him, right? We've got a hot throw connected to it. He's got to get out of the play. He's got to create a half roll, right? If we're running the ball and we've got disadvantaged numbers and we're running in a corner fire, well, the quarterback to take that next step, he's got to be able to get you out of that play, either spin it, put you in another play, put a fullback in motion, or have an X come and block that guy, because he understands the number count. And I think the third part is, you got to now, and I think he has, and he will continue to get better at it. There's going to be some times this year where a guy like that's going to just have to take over a football game, right? I mean, we've all seen it, and he's already done it, a number of times, and it's the next natural part of his growth, just like he has done as a leader. He's done a great job as a leader. Great job being able to communicate with a football team, get in front of them, lead by example, but also be able to voice, his reasons, his concerns, or what he feels is important. And when your quarterback does that, I think it gives you just a tremendous advantage, it really does.
With so many things to focus on, what would you say is your biggest concern right now?
Concern is a strong word, I don't, it's almost the way we operate, that word just doesn't appear much, and I'm not trying to cliche it in any way, shape, or form. I feel good about the fact that the culture is strong. So any deficiencies in personnel, any catch-up in scheme, I just think that culture and people will always trump scheme any day of the week, and that part's getting strong, and I believe that with the investment that our coaches have made in detail, attention to detail, and making sure the finer points of teaching and of mentoring and coaching at the level that they're bringing it to the table and at the level that our players are digesting it, I feel strong. I feel strong about the direction. I feel strong about the approach, the way we attack the opportunity. And really, I just, we like to enter camp and leave camp aggressive and confident. So I have no idea if I answered your question.
Talk a lot always about competition. And with this team being so veteran and having so many multi-year starters back, how do you manufacture that from top to bottom?
I think it's being manufactured by talent acquisition. I do. Look, if there is no competition, I think you have a legitimate problem on your team. Your team will never be great unless you have competition across the board. And a lot of times, people say winning fixes everything. Competition fixes everything first. That leads to winning. So I think it's manufacturing itself, and I think people are also looking in the mirror and challenging themselves to truly be the best they can be. And one of the biggest things is guys understand, how do you prepare, right? Because being tough is more than just kind of throwing it in there and making a physical tackle or making a really strong block. Being tough is being able to shut off your TV and putting your head down to sleep at 9:30. And being tough is being able to get up earlier so you can go get the right kind of food in your body and the right kind of treatment, the right tape job, so you could have successful practice. And being tough is investing more time in the film room while an opponent you might be playing down the road is taking time off or sleeping. That's toughness, doing the things that you really don't feel like doing, but are going to make you better, and doing them on a consistent basis. So I think those are critical things that are continuing to show up more and more and more, and it's got to become just a permanent part of the DNA. Okay, guys, thank you very much for being here. You got a bunch of guys here waiting, but enjoy the afternoon. Thank you.